The search for meaning in life. Have you ever wondered why you are here? Not here watching this video, but here, on this planet, in this body, in this existence. Sometimes life seems like a sequence of tasks to accomplish, commitments to honor, and standards to achieve. But what if none of this is really what matters? What if what you seek, this void that tries to fill with achievements, distractions, or even spirituality, is not outside, but inside of you? Carl Jung believed this, that the existential emptiness is not a mistake of life, it is a call. A subtle, almost imperceptible invitation that comes from the unconscious. But attention, he does not scream, he whispers. Most ignore this call because looking inside is scary. It's like going down the stairs of an old house where we don't know what we're going to find in the basement. But Jung used to say, whoever looks out dreams. Who looks inside awakens. Are you dreaming or awake? What if the true meaning of life is not in the answers you collect, but in the questions you have the courage to ask? But who was the man behind these ideas so deep? Who had the courage to face his own abyss and come back to tell? Carl Gustav Jung, Swiss psychiatrist, one of the first to venture into the unknown territories of the human psyche. But before being a theorist, he was a seeker, a human being like you and me. Do not think he was born enlightened or with the answers ready. Jung faced intense crises, disturbing visions, dark nights of the soul. He did not study the human soul from outside. He plunged into it. His conflicts were not only academic, they were personal. On the one hand, the father's religious rigidity, dogmas, doctrines, limits. On the other, a spiritual curiosity that consumed you from within. Have you ever felt this internal friction between what you were taught to believe and what you feel is true? Jung felt it, and instead of running away, he went to the bottom. Perhaps that is why his words are so powerful, because they did not come from books, but from internal battles. He did not observe the unconscious from afar. He lived there for a while. And this is precisely what makes it so relevant. Jung did not point the way from above. He walked alongside us in the same darkness. But what did he find inside? What did he see when he had the courage to face his own shadow? What Jung found was not a simple answer. It was the beginning of a journey, not a trip around the world, but around yourself. He called it an inner adventure, and like all real adventures, it starts with a crisis. Have you ever gone through one of those phases where everything seems to lose its meaning, where certainties crumble and you no longer know who you are or where you go? Indeed, Jung saw these crises not as signs of weakness, but as calls for transformation. He said that discomfort, doubt, chaos are not obstacles to be avoided. They are doors inside. But how often do we run away just when we are about to cross? The truth is that no one makes this journey for you. There is no map or shortcuts, only courage and listening. Because this adventure is not made of steps on the ground, it's made of silences, of strange dreams, forgotten memories that insist on coming back. Jung believed that rather than trying to fix life on the outside, we should first understand what is unadjusted on the inside. Have you ever given yourself that time? Have you ever really heard or keep running, waiting for peace to come out, when perhaps it only comes after you face? And that's where the real transformation begins. But what happens when this inner quest conflicts with what others expect from you? At first, Jung was not alone in this journey. There was someone, a master, a reference, almost a father figure. Sigmund Freud. Freud saw in Jung his successor, and Jung for a time believed that he had found the right way, an intellectual home, perhaps even spiritual. But what happens when your truth begins to bother you? Who taught you to think? Freud saw the unconscious as a basement of repressed desires, mainly sexual. Jung looked and saw something much larger, not just desires, but symbols, archetypes, ancient mysteries engraved in the human soul. For Jung, the unconscious was not a repository of traumas. It was a forgotten temple. This difference was more than a theoretical divergence. It was a deep rupture, almost like breaking up with a father. And you, ever had to get away from someone you admired, not to get away from yourself? It hurts, right? But sometimes it is in this cut that autonomy is born. Jung broke with Freud, and with this, also broke with the ties that prevented him from exploring the unknown. He went alone, but more whole. And so, analytical psychology was born, not as an opposition, but as an expansion. Because for Jung, the human mind was not a battlefield, it was a deep, living, symbolic forest waiting to be cleared. But how did he organize this forest? How did he understand the complexity of the human psyche? Jung believed that to understand the human soul, it was not enough to look at the surface. You had to dive, and by diving, he discovered layers. 3, to be more exact. On the surface is the ego, your conscious I, the part you show to the world, the one who makes decisions, who identifies with a name, a profession, a story. But is that all you are? Just below is the personal unconscious, a collection of memories, fears, traumas, and desires that you have preferred to forget or never realized, things that you lived but did not digest. You know that feeling that appears out of nowhere, that disproportionate reaction, that strange dream. It can come from there. And deeper still is the collective unconscious, yes, collective, a layer of the psyche that you share with all humanity. Scary, maybe, fascinating, sure. There live the archetypes, primordial patterns that appear in myths, dreams, stories. Even if you have never studied them, you feel them. They are in you. It is as if the human mind was a tree, and Jung showed us that our roots are not only in the personal past, but in something ancestral. Can you imagine how many parts of it you still do not know? How many forces are acting in silence, shaping your thoughts, desires, behaviors? The psyche, for Jung, was a whole universe, and the most curious, this universe is inside you. But what about those parts of you that you avoid at any cost? Those that you don't want to see, but live sabotaging you? Have you ever found yourself judging someone and deep down felt that judgment said more about you than the other person? Welcome to your shadow. For Jung, the shadow is not something evil, but everything that you repress, deny, or hide from yourself. Fears, impulses, personality traits, but also talents, wills, and even virtues that you never had the courage to assume. The shadow does not disappear just because you pretend it doesn't exist. In fact, the more ignored it is, the more power it gains. It manifests itself in exaggerated reactions, in criticism of others, in patterns that are repeated without explanation. Have you noticed how certain people irritate you more than they should? Maybe they are just mirroring something that you don't want to see in yourself. Jung said, everything that irritates us in others can lead us to an understanding about ourselves. But beware. Integrating the shadow does not mean becoming someone dark. It means becoming someone whole. It is like putting together the pieces of a puzzle. You can hide the pieces you don't like, but without them, the image will never be complete. And the most curious? In the shadow live not only their monsters, but also their dormant potentials. And then you have the courage to look at it, to face without masks, without filters, without excuses, because only those who recognize your shadow can begin to discover who you really are. But who is this true I? How to find it if we are so full of masks? After all, who are you when no one is looking? Not who you pretend to be, not the character you created to please, to fit in, to survive, but you, raw, naked, authentic. This is the great quest of life, according to Jung. And he gave this process a name, individuation. But make no mistake, individuation is not to become someone better or superior. It is becoming someone more true. It is the process of becoming who you were but did not know yet. It's a way back home, only this time the house is you. And the first step, recognize that there is more in you than what appears in the mirror. To individuate is to unite the opposites, light and shadow, conscious and unconscious, desire and fear, ideal self and real self. It's stop living to please and start living to integrate. But what about the masks you've been wearing for years? Those who were useful but today suffocate you. Jung said that we must remove the personas, abandon the theater of approval, face the void that arises when the audience leaves, and there, listen to the voice that comes from within. It is a long journey, lonely sometimes, but liberating, because as long as we are stuck to what others expect, we will never be what we came to be. And you have the courage to abandon what they expect from you, to find out what is in you. Do you know who you are, or have you just learned to be what others approve of? In childhood, we learn quickly. Smile, and you will be loved. Obey, and you will be accepted. Hide what you feel, and you will be rewarded. And so, little by little, we build a mask. Jung called it a persona, the social face, the role we play to be accepted in the theater of life, and it is useful. The persona helps to live, work, relate. But when we forget that it is only a mask, and when we confuse the role with the essence, how many times have you found yourself laughing unwillingly, saying yes, meaning no, following paths that you did not choose? It is at this point that the persona becomes a false me, a character so well played that the actor lost himself in the middle of acting, and then comes the void, that uncomfortable feeling of being surrounded and yet alone, to conquer and not feel complete, because the false self may please many people, but will never fill you. Jung invites us to a silent rebellion. Remove the mask, not to scandalize, but to release. Free the true being, hidden behind filters, forced smiles and unchosen obligations. And if you dropped that mask today, who would be seen? Could you recognize yourself? Or your truth is so buried that you don't even know where to start digging it? Imagine that the human mind is not just an individual maze, but a great invisible web connecting us all. And what you feel, think, desire is not only yours. You share with humanity a collective unconscious, a deep layer of the human psyche that is universal. It transcends time, culture, and even your own life. And you know what's inside? Primordial images, archetypal figures that form the script of human life. The hero, the mother, the wise, the trickster, the rebel. Patterns of behavior that are not born from you, but that are you. They live in myths, in stories, in dreams, in movies, and more importantly, they live in you. Have you noticed how, at certain moments in life, you feel called to act as the hero or at others as the rebel? These archetypes are not only distant or mythological figures, they are the invisible forces that shape our decisions, our challenges, and our evolution. Maybe you haven't noticed yet, but at some point you've seen yourself in a role. You've lived an archetypal journey without even knowing. When you find yourself lost, are you just living an archetype? When you seek wisdom, you are not just seeking an answer. You are seeking the wise within you. These archetypal figures are not just old stories. They are the seeds of your psyche waiting to grow. And when you recognize them, you begin to understand who you really are. Have you ever felt that there is something greater acting for you through you, as if an invisible force was driving you? Maybe it's time to let these archetypes guide you and start living according to the roles that really make sense for your journey. Life is not a problem to be solved, but a mystery to be lived. Jung reminded us that while we try to find quick answers, ready-made formulas, or definitive solutions, we are just running away from the beauty of the process. Because the true transformation does not happen at the end of the journey, but on the way itself. He did not offer us a manual of how to live life, but rather a key, the key to understanding ourselves, the key to dive into our unconscious and discover what actually moves us. And what we find there is not a universal truth, a predetermined destiny, or a single answer, but millions of small truths which are yours and mine from each one of us. Truths that intertwine in a great collective mystery. Jung invited us to look for what is inside, to stop seeking out what can only be found inside. He invited us to seek the meaning of life in our own soul and to understand that by integrating everything we are, we create a more authentic being, more real, fuller. Because true freedom is not in dominating the outside world, but in mastering what goes on inside us and recognizing that every journey, every moment, every challenge is a step towards our true self. Are you ready to face the mystery of your own life, to perhaps discover that the greatest transformation has ever happened when you began to become who you really are? Let's continue this journey together then. If this video made sense to you, if it made you question yourself in various aspects of your life, tell me here in the comments what you had insights to improve the way you deal with your true self. Enjoy and share this video with someone who you believe needs to hear this message too. Enjoy this video so it reaches more people who are getting lost, trying to fit in places that are not yours. Subscribe to the channel and remember, here we don't wear masks, we take them off. You're not alone. I'll see you in the next video.